I killed the future yesterday. That's what I told the mirror at 3:17 a.m., with the city shivering outside like a dog in the rain and the second moon still pinned to the sky where it didn't belong. My name is Leo Ravel, licensed historian, though that word means something different where I work. I don't write books. I fix timelines, like a locksmith with scars. We call ourselves restorers. Everyone else calls us ghosts. The night it happened, the board sent me to apartment 604, a place that smelled of solder and burned coffee. On the desk lay a brass egg no bigger than my palm, engraved with a spiral that never seemed to end. A chronoseed. Illegal, unstable, absolutely beautiful. The file said it would hatch at 3:19 a.m. and unfurl a ribbon of probability wide enough to strangle a century. My job was simple: remove it, bring it in, avert the loop. I wasn't prepared for the girl on the floor, knees hugged to her chest, eyes red as sirens. She looked about 19 and wore a sweater the color of rain. "Don't touch it," she said, voice cracked, like the end of a vinyl record. "It's for my mother." Time work teaches you to ignore tenderness, because tenderness is a corridor that leads to locked doors and long regrets. "If it hatches," I said, "your mother never meets your father, you're never born, and the city grows teeth." I didn't say the rest, that the seed spiral had my mentor's signature on it, that he'd disappeared last spring with a laugh and a promise. I set the capture case on the desk. The latch clicked like a tiny jaw. "My mother died yesterday," the girl said. "The seed rolls us back 3 days. I can fix it. I can set the stove lower. I can save her." People think time is a river you can swim backward in if you kick hard enough. It isn't. It's a library. You can visit rooms, but you don't get to steal the books. Still, the grief in her voice clutched at something inside me that had nothing to do with my license. I saw my own brother's hospital window reflecting the dusk, a memory I keep folded in my wallet like a receipt I can't throw away. "Name?" I asked. "Marin." "Marin, listen." The seed trembled. 2 minutes. A 3-day rollback might save your mother, yes. But probabilities tangle. Your neighbor marries a different woman. A bus stops 10 seconds later. Somewhere a child doesn't learn the word for wonder. That's what I'm here to prevent. She stood, fists balled, jaw set. "Then you prevent me." I should have closed the case. I should have called it in. Instead I looked at the second moon. It had appeared at 2:58, a pale coin hammered into the dark. Only temporal heat could cause that kind of sky bend. My mentor used to joke that the universe wore its mistakes like jewelry. I'd laughed then. I didn't laugh now. 1 minute. "Let me hold it," Marin said. "Just once." "You can't. Please." Her voice cracked again, and in that crack I heard my own name the last time my brother said it, soft as lint. I put the seed in her hands. The spiral gleamed, and for a moment the room held its breath. In another timeline, maybe I walked away. In this one, I placed my hand over hers. 30 seconds. "You won't like the cost," I said. "Every rescue takes a payment from somewhere you can't see." She looked up at me. "I'll pay." The seed's shell thinned to shine. The second moon thickened, tugging the tides in bowls and basins across the city. Somewhere, a violin string snapped. Somewhere, a dog began to howl at 2 skies. My earpiece hissed with orders I ignored. 10 seconds. I squeezed her hand. "We time stamp," I said. "We choose an anchor. If the tide rips us loose, we follow the stamp back." "How?" "Say what matters most." Her mouth shaped a word I never heard, because the seed split, light unfurling like silk, and the air folded us. For a heartbeat the world was a deck of cards being shuffled by a god with cold fingers. Plates rattled. The window shook. I thought of my brother's laugh. I thought of the board's laws. I thought of futures lined up like glass bottles on a rail, and then I did the thing I wasn't allowed to do. I changed the anchor. The future hiccuped. When the light collapsed, the second moon was gone. The city exhaled. Maren was still there, still breathing, still holding the empty shell. The clock read 12:19 a.m., 3 hours earlier than it should. Her phone buzzed. A message, "Mom home. Don't wait up. Bring milk?" Maren sobbed into her sweater, relief and terror braided together. "It worked," she whispered. I wanted to agree. But outside, the rain had stopped mid-fall. Drops hung like glass seeds from the air itself, refusing gravity. The world had been edited. And in the edit, I felt a gap where my brother's name should be. I killed the future yesterday, I told the mirror. I saved a mother. And I think I misplaced a life. The rain stayed frozen in the air for exactly 9 seconds before the laws of the city remembered themselves. Gravity returned like an apology, and water smashed against the pavement, hissing into gutters. Maren was still staring at her phone, fingers trembling, as if the words "Mom home" might vanish if she blinked too hard. I didn't tell her about the gap in my memory yet. Losing a name isn't like losing a set of keys. It's deeper. It's like walking into your childhood bedroom and finding the wallpaper has changed colors, though no one else remembers what it used to be. My brother's face was still in my mind, but his name slid away every time I reached for it, like an eel in dark water. We were standing in a city that thought it was 3 hours younger than it was, and the air was heavy with something I recognized from training, temporal residue. My mentor once called it ghost heat. It's what's left when time folds and doesn't quite iron itself flat. Too much ghost heat in one place, and reality starts to blister. Maren finally looked at me. "Is this permanent?" I hesitated. Nothing's permanent in my line of work. I snapped the empty shell of the chronoseed into my case. The spiral engraving looked dim now, like a song after the last note fades. We stepped out of the apartment and into a street washed in orange lamplight. At first glance, it seemed normal. Then I saw them, little places where the world stuttered. A man carrying an umbrella, but the rain slid sideways around him, never touching his coat. A bus that passed twice in the span of a minute, same driver, same passengers. "We anchored wrong," I said without meaning to. "What does that mean?" Maren's voice was thin. "It means," I said, "we got your mother back, but we might have broken something else to do it." I needed to check the city's timeline threads, but those records were locked behind board clearance, and after what I'd just done, clearance was a door that might stay shut in my face forever. Worse, if the board sent another restorer to investigate, they'd see the signature on the seed's design and connect it to me. Or to my mentor. That was when I saw him. Across the street, under a flickering sign for a pawn shop, a man in a long coat was watching us. His face was shadowed, but I knew the way he stood, weight on one leg, head tilted like he was listening to a faraway song. My mentor. Gone for almost a year, presumed dead. Maren followed my gaze. "Do you know him?" The man smiled faintly, then turned and vanished into the alley without a sound. I wanted to run after him. I wanted to drag him into the light and demand why he'd built a seed, why he'd let it fall into Maren's hands. But the street between us seemed to stretch longer than it should, like the city itself didn't want me to follow. Behind me, Maren's phone chimed again. Her face went pale. "It's Mom," she said. "She says, she remembers something that never happened." The rain started again. The message on Maren's phone was short, but it sat in my chest like a heavy coin. "We need to talk. I remember the fire." "What fire?" Maren asked me, her voice unsteady. I didn't answer right away, because the truth was, I didn't know, yet. But I did know one thing: people aren't supposed to remember events from erased timelines. That's not how reality is built. When something gets overwritten, the old version dissolves, taking all memory of it with it. If Maren's mother remembered, it meant the fold wasn't clean. I pulled my collar up against the rain and started walking. "Where are we going?" she called after me. "To see your mother." We caught a tram halfway across the city, the windows streaked with the kind of rain that makes streetlights look like melting gold. Maren sat opposite me, hugging her knees, watching me like I might have the answers written behind my eyes. I didn't. Halfway through the ride, the tram jolted, and the lights flickered out. For 3 long seconds, the world outside the windows was wrong, like someone had replaced the city with an unfinished sketch. Buildings were outlines, streets pale pencil lines. Then color bled back in, and the tram rattled forward as if nothing had happened. Maren whispered, "That's not normal, right?" "No," I said. "That's a seam." "What's a seam?" "Where 2 timelines don't agree on what reality should be. Sometimes they settle. Sometimes they split." She swallowed. "And if they split?" "You don't want to know." We got off near a block of low, yellow-lit houses, their windows fogged from the heat inside. Maren's mother lived in the last one, a narrow place with a crooked garden gate. Maren opened it slowly, as if afraid the house might disappear if she moved too fast. The woman who answered the door looked younger than I expected, mid-40s, hair tied back, eyes sharp. She hugged Maren tightly, but her gaze locked on me almost immediately. "You're one of them, aren't you?" It wasn't a question. I froze. "One of who?" "Restorers," she said, spitting the word like it tasted bad. "You patch time and call it mercy. But you leave holes. You left a hole in me." She let go of Maren and stepped back, gesturing toward the kitchen table. Laid out on it was a half-burned photograph, 3 figures standing in front of a house engulfed in flames. One was Maren. One was her mother. The third. I leaned closer. It was my brother. And this time, I didn't just forget his name, I saw him looking at me, in that frozen picture, with eyes that knew exactly what I'd done. The edges of the photograph curled inward like it was still trying to burn. My brother, whatever name he used to have, stood there in the image, his hand on Maren's shoulder, as if they'd always known each other. "This isn't possible," I murmured. Maren's mother's eyes narrowed. "You think I'm lying? I can feel the day in my bones. The heat. The smell. The way you pulled us out, except now, you weren't there. And she tapped the picture. He's gone. Gone." The word hit me harder than it should have. Not missing. Not erased. Gone. Like he'd slipped between the pages of a book and the author had decided to leave the space blank. I looked at Maren. "Have you ever seen him before?" She shook her head. "No. But," she frowned, rubbing her temple. "When I look at him, it's like. I almost remember laughing with him. Like a memory you wake up from, but it fades before you can catch it. Ghost heat was one thing. Seam flash, too. But this? A memory infection? That was dangerous." In training, they told us about rare cases where timelines bled into each other, letting people remember events that technically never happened. Usually, those people went mad trying to reconcile the contradictions. Maren's mother slid the photo across the table to me. "Tell me what you see." I hesitated, because once you name something, it becomes harder to deny it. "I see my brother," I said finally. "Then you've lost him too," she replied, and for a moment, there was a flicker of grief between us, quiet and heavy. Before I could ask more, the lights in the kitchen flared too bright, then dimmed to a sickly blue. The walls shivered, not metaphorically, but actually, as though the plaster were breathing. I heard a sound like a deck of cards being shuffled fast. Maren grabbed my arm. "What's happening?" "A seam opening," I said. My training voice, low, calm, lying about how bad it could get. A shadow leaked in through the ceiling corner, stretching downward like wet ink on paper. It wasn't shaped like a person, but if you looked too long, you might convince yourself it had eyes. Maren's mother didn't flinch. "He came through one of those," she said. "Your brother. Just stepped out, like he'd been waiting for me." I backed toward the door, pulling Maren with me. "You both need to come now." But the shadow moved faster. It stretched across the floor, touching the photograph. And when it did, My brother's face blurred, like someone had dragged a wet brush across wet ink, until there was nothing left but two figures in front of the burning house. Maren gasped. It's eating it. Not eating, I thought. Erasing. And if it could erase a photograph, what could it do to us? I yanked Maren and her mother out the front door just as the kitchen went silent. Not quiet, silent, like someone had cut the sound out of the world entirely. Behind us, the house didn't explode or collapse. It just stopped being there. Where it had stood was a hollow space, black as unlit water, rippling faintly as if it had depth but no floor. I knew this phenomenon by a name we were never supposed to use outside the board's archives, a null pocket. The last time one appeared in the city, it swallowed 12 blocks before it closed. We ran. I didn't tell them that null pockets didn't just erase space, they rewrote memory to make it seem like nothing was missing. If it grew large enough, even I might forget Maren and her mother existed. We cut through backstreets until my lungs burned. Finally, under the shelter of a flickering street lamp, Maren's mother grabbed my sleeve. Stop. You're going to tell me what's happening. I leaned against the wall, trying to keep my voice steady. Something came through the seam. It's cleaning up anomalies. Anomalies like my daughter's life, she snapped. I didn't answer. Because she wasn't wrong. Maren stepped forward, her breath sharp in the cold air. That shadow, was it after you? Or after him? She didn't have to say my brother's name, she couldn't. Both, I admitted. If he crossed over from another timeline, he's unstable. The shadow could be a temporal predator. That's not a thing, Maren's mother cut in. I met her eyes. Lady, everything's a thing if it happens often enough. The street lamp above us buzzed, then went out entirely. In the dark, I heard footsteps, a slow, deliberate crunch of boots on wet gravel. A figure emerged from the alley, coat hanging heavy, hat pulled low. Even before he stepped into the dim orange glow of the next lamp, I knew. My mentor. The man who'd taught me how to anchor, how to read threads in the weave of time. The man who'd vanished a year ago. You're still breaking the rules, Leo, he said, his voice as calm as it had been the day he left. And now you've got the null's attention. Maren's mother squared her shoulders. Who are you? He ignored her, looking only at me. You need to decide whether you're going to fix this, or follow him. Him? I asked. My mentor smiled faintly, and in that smile was the kind of sadness you only see in someone who knows exactly how the story ends. Your brother. The name I couldn't remember pressed against the inside of my skull, trying to break through. My brother. The mentor's words were like a thread tugging at a locked door in my mind. Where is he? I asked. My mentor tilted his head toward the eastern skyline, where the tallest buildings glowed faintly under the clouded night. Somewhere the board won't follow. Somewhere the null can't erase, yet. Maren stepped closer. If he's alive, why didn't you tell me sooner? I gave her a sharp look. Because I didn't even know he existed an hour ago. She stared at me like I'd grown another head. You expect me to believe that? Before I could answer, my mentor stepped between us, his coat brushing the wet pavement. The null isn't just cleaning anomalies, Leo. It's hunting him. And every second you waste here. A sound split the air, sharp and metallic, like a train whistle in reverse. I glanced up. The sky over the east side rippled, pulling inward, the way water swirls before it drains. A dark column stretched from the clouds down to the streets, and I knew without question that was where my brother was. Maren's mother grabbed her daughter's arm. You're not going anywhere near that. Maren shook her off. She's my mother in this timeline, but in another? Maybe your brother saved me. Maybe I owe him my life. I'm going. The mentor's eyes flicked between us. If you both go, you'll need an anchor stronger than the one you used for the seed. I already knew what he meant, a living tether. Something, or someone, woven deep enough into our personal history to pull us back if the null tried to erase us. Who? Maren asked. My mentor's gaze settled on Marin's mother. Her. She laughed bitterly. I'm not a time walker. I'm not. You don't have to be, he interrupted. You just have to care enough about both of them to hold them here. The ground shivered under our feet, a slow, rolling tremor that made the streetlight sway. Somewhere in the distance, car alarms began wailing. The null was growing. I turned to Marin's mother. If you say no, this ends here. If you say yes, there's no guarantee we make it back. She studied me, then her daughter, then the far-off ripple in the sky. Finally, she nodded once. Then let's go. The mentor smiled faintly. Good. Follow me. And Leo? What? If you see him, don't call him by name. Not until you're sure it's still his. We followed my mentor through a maze of narrow streets, the kind that felt older than the city itself. The rain thinned to a mist, and with every step eastward, the air grew heavier, like walking into a room where someone had just whispered your name and you weren't sure if you'd imagined it. The column of darkness ahead pulsed faintly, and I realized it wasn't static, it was spinning, slow and deliberate, like a screw turning into the fabric of the world. Each rotation pulled faint shapes into view, silhouettes that flickered and dissolved before I could recognize them. Marin's mother kept pace better than I expected, her jaw tight, eyes locked forward. Marin herself stayed close to me, glancing at my mentor as if trying to figure out whether to trust him. I wasn't sure I could, either. We stopped in front of a building I knew didn't belong here. It was wrong, not in design, but in placement. The edges didn't quite line up with the street. From one angle, it was 4 stories, from another, 5. The windows reflected a sky that wasn't ours. He's inside, my mentor said. But so is the null. How do we get him out? I asked. He reached into his coat and pulled out something small and metallic, a key, but the teeth shimmered, shifting like they were remembering other shapes. You open the door, Leo. You've still got enough of your license to make the lock listen. But once you do, you can't hesitate. Marin grabbed my arm. Wait, what happens if the null gets to us first? My mentor's eyes were steady. Then it decides which version of you it wants to keep. And the rest, he didn't finish the sentence. The key was warm in my hand, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. I stepped up to the door. The wood felt damp, but the moment the key touched the lock, I heard a whisper, not words, exactly, but the shape of words, inside my head. The door was asking me what I wanted. I thought of my brother's blurred face in the photograph. I thought of the burning house, of Marin's mother's sharp voice saying you've lost him too. I thought of all the names I'd forgotten. The lock clicked. The door swung inward. The inside wasn't a hallway, it was a long, sloping street under a sky of fractured glass. The ground pulsed under my boots, and at the far end, I saw him. My brother. He was standing perfectly still, facing away from me, looking up at the spinning column that reached down from the glass sky. The null hung above him like an open mouth. I took a step forward. He turned. And it wasn't his face anymore. The face looking back at me was wrong in ways my mind didn't want to describe. It was almost my brother, same eyes, same curve of the jaw, but there was something else behind it, wearing him like a borrowed suit. The expression was too still, the smile too exact, as if it had been painted there. Leo, it said, and the sound was my brother's voice layered over something deeper, like stone cracking in slow motion. You came. Marin froze beside me. Her mother stepped in front of her instinctively, though I knew that wouldn't stop whatever this was. My mentor's voice was a quiet threat at my ear. Don't speak his name. Not yet. The figure started walking toward us, and as it did, the fractured glass sky shifted, showing flashes of other worlds, streets flooded with violet light, deserts under 2 suns, forests of black trees breathing in unison. Each flicker made my stomach twist. I forced my voice steady. What are you? The smile didn't move. The part of him that remembers. The part you threw away when you chose not to follow. I tightened my grip on the key still in my hand. I didn't choose. You did, it interrupted, stepping closer until its shadow stretched over my boots. And now I'm all that's left of him. Behind it, the null's spinning mouth widened, the pull of it brushing at the edges of my thoughts. I realized too late what it wanted, not just my brother, but me. Two pieces of the same history, neatly packaged for erasure. My mentor hissed, "Anchor now, or you lose everything." Marin's mother grabbed my arm. Her grip was like iron. "If you go to him, you're not coming back." The figure tilted its head. "Or maybe you bring me with you. Then he lives." The pull grew stronger. The glass sky groaned. My memories began to flutter, images of my childhood rearranging themselves, moments dissolving like sugar in water. If I waited any longer, I'd forget why I was here at all. I stepped forward, closing the distance, and pressed the key against the thing's chest. "Then you're coming back," I said, "but on my terms." The key's teeth shifted, aligning with something I couldn't see, and the street around us bent like a sheet of metal. The null screamed, if you could call that sound a scream, and the glass sky shattered inward, collapsing. When the light cleared, we were standing in the middle of an empty intersection in the real city. The rain was falling normally again. Marin and her mother were there, both breathing hard. My mentor was gone. And beside me, my brother was on his knees, coughing. Whole. Real. His face exactly as I remembered it. Only. I still didn't know his name. He looked up at me, eyes sharp and wet. "You took too long," he said. And before I could answer, the second moon rose again.